Hey folks, this is Rhykker, bringing you a Heroes of the Storm beginner guide to Valla, the demon hunter from Diablo 3. Now, Valla is a great hero to play if you like to shoot at your enemies from afar, deal lots of damage, and be very nimble around the battlefield. Valla's role in a party is an assassin. If you're coming from World of Warcraft, that means she's a DPS. Her specialty is killing enemy heroes. And what makes her great for new players is that her skills are fairly simple to use and don't require you to be pushing a lot of keys. In fact, there are perfectly valid builds that rely mostly on her auto attack. So let's take a look at her abilities. First off, you have Hungering Arrow. Now, Hungering Arrow is an ability that you do have to aim. It fires in a straight line, and it'll strike the first enemy that it hits. That includes minions, so you have to be a little careful if you're trying to hit an enemy hero. That said, it delivers quite a punch, and when it does hit an enemy, it then shoots off a couple homing missiles that will deliver additional damage. Next we have Multi-Shot. This one is a lot easier to aim. This is basically a shotgun blast. You point it in a direction, and it deals damage in a wide cone. In the early game, when you're still in the laning phase, you ideally want to be targeting your multi-shot so that you hit at least one enemy hero as well as all the enemy minions in the wave. It could be a little tricky to pull off the perfect shot every time, but overall this is a really easy power to use. In the heat of a team fight, just try to get as many enemy heroes in that cone as possible. Or you can even use it to attack a stealthed character like Nova or Zeratul. You normally can't target them while they're cloaked, but you could hit them with area damage, and damaging them while cloaked will bring down that cloak, allowing you to follow up with subsequent attacks. It could be especially difficult in the beginning to see cloaked enemies around you, but you'll notice that they leave a little shimmer on the ground. Over time you'll get used to this and you'll be able to spot it. And for those opportunities when you do spot it, or when you're chasing down a Nova or a Zeratul and think you're thwarted as you see them cloak, just remember, multi-shot and they're revealed. Next we have Vault. Very simple. You'll mostly be using this as an escape power, but you can also use it offensively. You can use it to dive when you see an enemy retreating and you think he's going to get away, but that Vault's going to give you the distance you need to get up to him and take that last shot that will kill him. That said, that's a little trickier. You don't want to overextend, you don't want to die. Your team needs you to be alive so that you're dealing damage and being a threat to the enemy, and it's not worth it for you to sacrifice yourself to kill an enemy. In general, in team fights, you want to be staying behind the main line. You're going to be a priority target. Everyone knows that you deal a ton of damage. So if they try to get aggressive and push forward, push past your front line, use your Vault to dash further back to avoid getting killed. Now, as a passive ability, the Demon Hunter has Hatred, and what that does is her basic attacks, her auto attack, grant bonus attack damage and move speed temporarily. So between Vault and the move speed granted by your Hatred, you're a very nimble hero. Use this mobility to your advantage to keep yourself alive, and should an opportunity arise, and you feel you can do so safely, to dive after a retreating enemy that's very low on health. Onto her ultimates, Valla has a choice of Rain of Vengeance and Strafe. Rain of Vengeance sends down 2 waves of shadow beasts that deal damage and stun enemies. Rain of Vengeance is shot in a straight line, so you do have to aim it, and in general this ability is better used against an enemy team that is very melee focused or that is really getting up in your face. Because it has that crowd control to it, that stun effect, this is slightly more of a defensive option than Strafe, which is pure offense. Strafe turns you into a spinning rafflecopter that fires off in every direction like a machine gun tied to a ceiling fan. While strafing, you can't use your other attack powers, but you can still vault. So use that to your advantage to keep yourself alive, or again to hunt down a wounded fleeing target. You're already a priority target, but when you're strafing, you are even more so. Remember to use your mobility to your advantage. You strafe for 4 seconds, and during that time, you deal out a ton of damage. This is the easier of the 2 powers to use, because you don't really have to aim it. You just have to get enemies within range of you, and they'll get hit. But it is easy to get a little trigger happy, get too close to the enemy during those team fights, and die while strafing. So just remember, if you kill even just one enemy without dying yourself, you've done your job. Now we're not going to get into specific builds, but we're going to take a look at the talents and talk about which might be useful to you in what situations. Now first off, let's look at composite arrows. Some Valla builds rely on multi-shot. Again, it's a really easy power to aim, and it's actually a very competitive option. So composite arrows will extend the range of multi-shot by 20%. That makes it even easier for you to hit enemies, and to do so from a safe distance. Now, Rhykker is a great trait because it's going to passively increase your attack speed as you auto-attack. It's used in a lot of competitive builds, but also just relying on auto-attack mostly is going to be easier for you as a beginner. Because this way, if you forget to use some of your other abilities at the best times, at least you're buffing your auto-attack so that you're still dealing out damage. Onto our level 4 talents. If you lack a healer on your team, or you just find that you're having an issue with maintaining health, you can go with Vampiric Assault. This will allow you to heal as you deal damage with your auto attack. Again, this is really good to combine with a build that relies mostly on auto attack. If you're going with a multi-shot build, then Arsenal is going to make your multi-shot deal more damage. Or if you're going for an auto attack build and healing isn't really an issue for you, then you can go for more damage. You can go with Manticore, and that's going to make repeated attacks against the same target deal more damage. At level 7, if you're going with an auto attack build, then Searing Attacks is an ability that you do have to activate, so that's another button for you to push. However, it's going to increase your basic attack damage for 5 seconds. So again, if you're building towards auto attack, this is going to make you very scary to deal with. Otherwise, another interesting option, which I like to combine with the multi-shot build, is Repeating Arrow, and this refreshes the cooldown on Hungering Arrow when you vault. So if you find yourself vaulting more offensively than defensively, if you're really using it to hunt down enemy heroes, then a nice 1-2 punch is to first use Hungering Arrow, then vault forward and Hungering Arrow them again. That's generally going to be enough to finish them off if you're going after a weak and retreating hero. But that does require a little bit more micromanagement of your powers. Level 10, we already discussed the choice between the two ultimates. Level 13, if you've gone with a multi-shot build, then Frost Shot really helps you chase down fleeing enemies. It applies a slow effect to multi-shot. And since we have that range bonus on it from the level 1 trait Composite Arrows, it's going to be really difficult for wounded enemies to get away from you alive. If instead you're going with an auto attack build, then you can go with Giant Killer for more damage against heroes. Or if you're concerned about healing, then you can go with Tempered by Discipline. This will give you even more lifesteal. Between Tempered with Steel and Vampiric Assault, Valla is able to solo a Siege Giant camp and finish them off at full health. At level 16, the easiest power for you to take, the safest one to take, is Tumble. This gives you a second charge to your vault power. There's no additional buttons for you to push. This makes it even easier for you to disengage from a fight. If you're being chased, you can vault twice in quick succession, and you're gonna outrange almost anything that they could possibly do to try to kill you. Blood for Blood is a more offensive option, and it's more difficult because it gives you an additional button on your keyboard that you have to push. This is a one-shot attack that will lifesteal from an enemy, and slow its movement speed for a number of seconds. So in a team fight, if you're starting to get low on health, you can pop this on the enemy warrior, who's generally going to have the highest max health, or you can even use it on a priority target to stop it from escaping so that it could be killed. Again though, this is far more micro intensive. You have to push the button on your keyboard and then correctly click on the enemy, whereas Tumble is a much safer option and doesn't give you any additional micro. Then lastly, your level 20 powers. If you took Strafe, then taking Vengeance is going to make it even deadlier. It's as simple as that. Nexus Frenzy is a power that's going to make your auto attacks all the more deadly. You're going to be attacking faster and with greater range. It's late in the game to be getting this, but that added range means you can stick a little further back in the fight, which could be the difference between you living and dying. Now lastly, Bolt of the Storm is a really great power. However, it's a lot more difficult to use. Nexus Frenzy and Vengeance are passive abilities, but Bolt of the Storm, that gives you another button to push, and you have to decide when is a good time to use this. This is on a 40-second cooldown. If you feel you're good enough to make good use of it, it's a really strong power, but Nexus Frenzy and Vengeance are great powers and they're a lot safer. That wraps up this guide. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more Heroes of the Storm guides, in which we'll give tutorials on characters, maps, team roles, and general tips and tricks. Drop a comment letting me know your thoughts on Valla as a character. Do you like her? Do you play her? Do you hate playing against her? And if you enjoyed this video, share with friends and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders.